Hey guys, welcome to Church Standards. My name is Matt, and if you're anything like me, you are tired of trying to find church production tutorials that are either outdated, overly complicated, or just someone trying to sell you something. This channel exists for one reason: to give you clear, up-to-date, real-world how-to videos that actually work in a live church environment. Everything here is built from what I use every single week. It's real setups, real problems, real fixes, so you can make your church production safer, smoother, and bulletproof without guessing or breaking things on a Sunday morning. So today's video, we are going to go ahead and try to automate our ProPresenter slides using Ableton Live. So I'm using Ableton Live 11, and I'm using ProPresenter 7. So we are going to do this strictly over the network. So we're not going to run a MIDI cable from one computer to another. We are going to have Ableton send MIDI signals from the Ableton computer over the network to the ProPresenter computer. And it's actually pretty simple, pretty easy, and it's such a small packet of data that it's really not going to have dropouts. I still recommend having this hardwired machines, but if you don't have a way to hardwire them, that's totally fine. Wi-Fi should still work unless you have a crazy overcomplicated system. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started on the Ableton side of things first. We'll be going over to ProPresenter here in a little bit, but to start off, let's just start off in Ableton. So every single Mac already has audio MIDI setup installed on it. So go ahead, open that up. So hit Launchpad, launch your audio MIDI setup, and then let's get started from there. So it's going to auto default for me on MIDI Studio already, but it's not going to auto start there for you guys. So you're going to go ahead and hit View. You're going to hit the Show MIDI Studio. It's going to default it probably on this screen for you guys. I'm just going to go ahead and go to the MIDI Studio. So you're going to go to MIDI Studio, and then you're going to go ahead and hit this little globe icon up here, and that is the network. So once you're in MIDI Studio, hit the globe, network, and then you're going to see here, I already have main session 1. You guys will not have main session 1. So to basically make it simple, a session is just the MIDI session that other devices are going to be using. So we're going to go ahead and make a new session here because we're starting from scratch. So I'm going to hit the little plus. Session 2 is going to pop up. And basically what we're going to do here is we're going to set up every setting that we need. So we're going to go ahead and turn session 2 on. And then once session 2 is on, you can see it's active. We're going to select this. Make sure it's set to anyone. If it's set to no one, other devices on your network cannot see your MIDI signal. So make sure who can connect to me is set to anyone. And then over here, we're now going to look at two things, local name and bonjour name. So what is local name and what is bonjour name? So local name is what your local MIDI session is called. So this is what your computer internally sees that your MIDI session is called, where bonjour name is what other devices see that your MIDI session is called. So local name really doesn't matter what you name it, neither does bonjour name. It's just for you. So I'm going to go ahead and change my local name to Abelton, and I'm going to change my bonjour name to Ableton to ProPresenter. And now I know on that side, on the ProPresenter side, I'm going to be looking for something called Ableton to ProPresenter. So as you can see here, it pops up as my directory. I obviously can't select it because that is me, so I can't connect to my own MIDI signal. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump to the actual ProPresenter side. So on the ProPresenter side, we're going to open up, same thing, our MIDI Studio. And we're going to go ahead and go back to the globe. And now here, we're going to do the same thing on this side. So we're going to create a new session. Name the session whatever you want, doesn't matter. We're going to change the local name, and we're just going to make the local name ProPresenter, and then we're going to change the bonjour name to ProPresenter to Ableton. And we're going to go ahead and do that, and now you can see it pops up there in the directory. And now that we have this synced, now we are ready to actually connect the two computers to each other through MIDI. So to do that, you are just going to select Ableton and ProPresenter, hit connect, and you can see over here in participants, it now says that you are connected to Ableton to ProPresenter with a 0 millisecond latency. It's going to be 0 milliseconds because it's such a small packet of data that it's receiving that it's not going to really have any lag at all, which is great. So now that we have that hooked, the two computers' MIDIs are now synced to each other, but now we need to make sure that Ableton and ProPresenter are actually talking to each other. So to do this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit ProPresenter at the top left, and we're going to go to our preferences. Once we get to preferences, we're going to hit devices. Once you hit devices, we're going to hit add device, and we are going to select MIDI. Now, when you do that, this is going to pop up, and then what we care about is our session 1 that we created on this MIDI local network. We're going to turn on session 1 sources and session 1 destinations. The only other thing I care about in this setting view is auto reconnect. This is going to make it to where every time I open up ProPresenter, it's auto going to reconnect to MIDI, so I don't have to do this every single time. I don't care about hardware. I don't care about behavior. I'll leave that exactly how it is. This is the only settings that we need to touch in this actual side of the MIDI settings on ProPresenter. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go back out of this. And once we go back, we are going to hit connect. And when we hit connect, we want to see this green little bar to the left right there. That means that it has a good MIDI signal coming in. The only other thing that we need to pay attention on this screen is the most confusing part of all of it, and that is going to be the MIDI map down here. So when you go ahead and click that, it's going to look like a lot of Spanglish. I don't expect you to understand what all of this means, but basically these are our keys. So whenever Ableton sends a key, this is telling you what that key does. So there's only a few things that we really care about on the screen that we are going to use. And that is going to be F-1. It is also going to be F#-1, G-1. Those are the only 3 things we're really going to look at today because that's all we really need to be successful with this automation. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to switch back to the Ableton side of things. And so here I have a blank show, and we're going to go ahead and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up the MIDI. So we're going to hit live, we're going to go to settings, and then we are going to go ahead and go to MIDI. So in MIDI, the only thing we care about is going to be down here. So we don't care about anything on the ends, we only care about out. So as you can see, our name is Ableton. So we are going to find network Ableton. So we don't care about the input, we only care about the output. So the only thing we're going to do is we're going to select track on this right here. We don't care about these 2 options, and we don't care about the inputs because we are not having MIDI come into the computer. We are only sending MIDI out of the computer. So we're going to turn off the input on this, and then we're going to go ahead and go back into our session here. So what we're going to do now is we are going to create a new MIDI track in our presentation. So to do that, all you have to do is the Command-Shift-T. That is going to make a brand new MIDI track inside of our presentation. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Now, these are the exact settings that we want to do with this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the inputs because, again, we're not getting MIDI put in. We are only sending MIDI out of Ableton. We don't care about MIDI coming into Ableton. So we're going to hit all ins. We're going to hit no input. And then for output, we are going to go ahead and select that network session right there. And then we're just going to leave it on channel 1. ProPresenter sees MIDI on all channels, so it really doesn't matter what channel you put it on, but just leave it on what it defaults to because it makes it simpler and easier. So we're going to leave it channel 1 right there. So now we are going to go ahead and get started with showing you how to do these MIDI cues. So normally, you'd have your whole entire session laid out here with all of your tracks and your songs. So we're just going to act like there's music put into Ableton already, and I'm going to show you how to actually drop in these MIDI cues and how to set them to control what you need to. So to do that, it's actually very simple. You just double click anywhere that you want the first thing to go, and then down here, this is where we're seeing what we saw in the MIDI map earlier. So this is really where we need to pay attention to what we're doing. So again, we're really going to only be paying attention to a couple of things. So the first thing I always do is I kind of expand this view so it's easier to see and it's easier to work in because you can see right here, it's really tiny right now. So I'm going to expand this up, and I'm also going to expand the velocity up so that way I can easily see it a little bit more and it's not so small because I have terrible eyesight. And then, yeah, let's go ahead and switch back to our ProPresenter side real quick. So the first thing we're going to do in our ProPresenter is we are going to figure out how to send a MIDI signal to select a playlist. So if we go back here and go to MIDI map, that is going to be F-1 is how you select a playlist. Now, you might be saying, now hold on, I have like 6 playlists on my ProPresenter computer for different ministries and different things. That is where we're going to be doing something called the velocity. So don't worry if you have multiple playlists. I'm going to show you how to tell it to which playlist you want it to select. So let's go ahead and act like we have 3 playlists here. So we're just going to make 3 random playlists. And then let's act like playlist 3 is our main playlist that we're going to be using this automation for. So to do that now, we're going to go ahead and go back to MIDI mapping. And so we are going to do the command F-1, but then we're going to do velocity 3. So we're going to go down here. We're going to find F-1, double click on F-1. So now that's telling it select playlist, and then velocity is telling it what number to do. So if I do velocity 1, it is saying select playlist 1. So we want it to select playlist number 3. So to do that, we are going to drag velocity 1 to velocity 3. So now whenever I hit play on that note, it is now going to select velocity 3. So now we need to tell it to select the presentation in playlist 3. So right now I don't have any presentations here, so let's just go ahead and put a couple of random things down. So we're going to do 2 headers, and then let's just see, I don't have any playlist here. We're just going to drag that presentation in. Let's create another presentation, and then I want Ableton to control this presentation here. So let's just go ahead and add an extra slide just so we don't have only one slide here. So this is item number 4. So as you can see here, we have header, presentation 1, header, presentation 2. So headers count as a number. So when we go back to MIDI map, we are going to now be paying attention to this right here, which is F#-1. So this is where we're going to need to do velocity. So it's going to be F#-1, velocity 4 is going to select item number 4 in that playlist. So if we wanted to do presentation 1, it would be F#-1, velocity 2, because we'd be doing the first presentation, because remember, a header counts as a number. So let's go ahead and find F#-1 and add a new MIDI command, which is just by double clicking, and then change velocity to 4, because we want it to go ahead and now at the same time that it selects playlist number 1, we want it to select that second presentation, which was item number 4 in our playlist. So now if we were to play this, it would do both of those things at the same time. So now let's go ahead and go back to our ProPresenter side. And now we're going to tell it that we want it to go ahead and select the first slide inside of presentation number 2. So let's go ahead and go back to our MIDI map. And the next thing we're going to be looking at is trigger slide. So that is G-1. So if we wanted the trigger slide number 1 in that presentation, it would be G-1, velocity 1. If we wanted to be slide number 2, it would be G-1, velocity 2, and so on and so forth, all the way down to the last slide. So let's go ahead and give that a try. We're going to go ahead and go back to Ableton, and now we're going to find G-1. We're going to add a new clip, and now we're going to change that velocity to velocity 1. So now let's go ahead and give it a try. Let's see what happens when we run this MIDI command. It should select that first slide inside of presentation number 2. So we're just going to go ahead and click right before the beginning of the MIDI note. We're going to play the MIDI note, and it just fired that command. So now that slide should be active, and there it is. So it went ahead, it went to playlist number 3, presentation number 2, and selected slide number 1. So now let's go ahead and make it select slide number 2. So first thing, let's just add a couple of extra slides here, so that way we can do a couple of them. So now we have 5. So let's go in here, and then we're just going to go ahead and double click another spot, because this is where we want slide number 2. So let's just double click here. We're going to do G-1, double click, velocity to 2. And now, once we're on velocity 2, let's go ahead and start a little bit back and go watch it live in ProPresenter to see what it does. So now it's going to hit the first slide, which is already selected, but then in a second it's going to go to slide number 2. There it is. So if you go back here, you can see it passed that note in Ableton. And now let's go ahead and duplicate this a couple of times. So we're going to make this easy. We're going to copy this note because we like what this is doing. And now when we copy that note, we can simply just paste this as we go through the song. So let's just say these are where we want the next slides to go. And then all we have to do is change the velocity number on each of these to the slide number that we want. So we're going to change the first one to velocity 3, second one to velocity 4. Now let's go ahead and test our work. So let's hit play. We're going to watch. Slide number 1 is triggered. Slide number 2 is triggered. Slide number 3 is triggered. Slide number 4 is triggered. And slide number 5 is triggered. Now, if we go back to our MIDI map, there's obviously a lot more of cues that you can do here. If you wanted to do like a clear command, you could do a clear command. It's really up to you of what you want to experiment with next. Those 3 commands are really all you need for a Sunday morning to control your slides, but it's really built on how your church is set up and how you guys want it and what you guys want to do with it. But yeah, this is the basis of how to use Ableton and ProPresenter through MIDI to automate your slides. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me through my email, which is linked in my profile, and I will help you guys with whatever you need. But thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you next time.